Greetings and welcome to the August edition of The Place to Be, Oshkosh. I'm your host, John Neiman. I am Program Service Coordinator at COTS in Oshkosh. I'm very excited to tell you we have a new sponsor for our show. Besides the wonderful Oshkosh Herald, which is a great community newspaper, we also have COTS as our new sponsor. So COTS Incorporated, they're stationed out of Appleton, do wonderful, wonderful things for those in need, transitional housing. And I'm very happy to be employed by them and also to have them sponsor our show. So thank you for joining us. It's hard to believe, but this is the 12th show of our new series. You're probably thinking too, as you look at the set, it's like, where did July go? We're into August already, which means kids will be going back to school soon, which is good for the parents, I guess, and not so good for the kids. Thank you for joining us. Our floral design is by Brian at U Bloom on Witzel. Where can you see us? You can see us on Life TV. Also, if you go to YouTube and just put in Oshkosh Media, you can see all the wonderful shows from Oshkosh Media. Be sure to like our shows. My kids always kid me about when you go on YouTube, it always says, did you like the show? I keep saying yes. Push like that you like the show. Also want to thank the Friends of Oshkosh Community Media for this show. Wanted to talk a little about COTS and what we do. So COTS in Oshkosh right now has a men's program that opened in April of this year. So we are a program, we have program fees, so anyone who is eligible to come to COTS can stay up to 2 years. And in that time, they get help with checkbooks and budgeting and take a class on RedSmart and other financial things. And we try to help them maneuver the system and get an apartment and get out on their own. Volunteering at COTS, there's always something to do. We have people that volunteer their time with lawn cutting and the flower beds, or if you don't have time to do it because everyone is so busy these days, you can donate items. So our men, if they don't have a vehicle, and most don't have a vehicle, they either take their bike or a bus to work. So we're always looking for donations of bus passes or tokens, or let's talk food. We have something called the Meal Ministry, where we have groups will donate meals to us, so when the men get home from work, they have a meal waiting for them. Or people will go shopping and stock our cupboards for us, because the men also like to cook. So there's so many different ways that you can be involved with COTS. And once again, if you're interested in more information, you can call me on my cell phone at 920-279-9873, or you also can email me. Thank you to the crew. Every time I say something, it pops up on the screen. My email is johnneiman1078@gmail.com. Once again, we're glad that you could be here and join us for this August edition of The Place to Be Oshkosh. Stay tuned, and we'll be back with the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Hi, welcome back to our second segment of The Place to Be Oshkosh. I'm excited to have our guests on the show because my kids, who are now in their 30s, also participated in the Boys and Girls Club when they were growing up, and it was a great program, especially for my kids who are really involved in sports. So we have with us Jay Gibson, who's the Big Futures Mentoring Coordinator. So first of all, before we introduce your guest, what is Big Futures?
Yeah, Big Futures is a unique mentoring program. It's a middle school-based mentoring program where we've partnered with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of East Central Wisconsin. It's a traditional one-to-one mentoring program where we match one Oshkosh adult community member with one Oshkosh middle school student.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
You know, when I get this stuff too, the one thing I can't stand in our world today are acronyms. You know, BBBB and BCB, and even we have acronyms too, and you try to figure out what do they mean? What do they stand for? So I understand now.
Yeah. I try not to let people know not to say the Boys and Girls Club and Big Brothers Big Sisters all in one sentence. It's
Oh my
a lot
gosh,
of
yeah.
B's.
Do you want to introduce who you brought
Yeah,
along
so
with us?
today with me we have Walt Quinlan. He's a mentor in our program and also a board member with the Boys and Girls Club of Oshkosh.
And I'm glad you said that too, because we talked about this before the show. So can you tell me why you got interested in being on the board? Because when I interview people, whether it was in my previous life or volunteering, and I always say, what volunteering experience do you have? They never count church, and they never count committees or boards, and that really is a vital role. So what interests you in being on the board?
Sure. So I've been on the board at the Boys and Girls Club since October of 2022. So I'm a fairly new board member. I'm still getting my feet wet. And one of the reasons I joined the board is to try to get more involved in the community. I moved up from Chicago back in 2007, so I'm still fairly new at the area and still trying to meet people. And the one thing that brought me to the Boys and Girls Club is working with young kids in the youth in Oshkosh. I've been a football, basketball, baseball coach for my young 3 boys for the last 4 or 5 years through the YMCA. So Jay mentioned the mentor program in one of our board meetings, and it struck my interest, and yeah, I've been part of it for the last couple months.
Well, cool. Well, welcome to our community. Thank you for what you do, because volunteering is what Oshkosh is all about. I mean, we're such a giving community, and there's just so many ways that you can volunteer. So not only as a board member, but now as a mentor. So let's talk about being a mentor. Who is it? Number one, who is it for, and what's the process?
Yeah, so it's really for anybody that wants to give back to the community. The process is pretty simple. Number one, we take safety very seriously. So when we're bringing a mentor on board, we go through a formal screening, background check, and then we do a pretty lengthy interview. It's about an hour long.
Wow.
Mainly to gauge likes, things they don't like to do, interests, so we can make the best match possible. But it takes about, from start to finish, the process of bringing a mentor on board takes about anywhere from a month and a half to 2 months.
Okay, which is good.
Yep.
I mean, you'd rather be more thorough than very lenient on stuff.
Yeah, anytime we're dealing with kids, we want to make sure safety is of the utmost importance.
When I used to run background checks on volunteers, which I think is a good thing, and you'd say CBC, first of all, they don't know what a CBC is, and then the little old ladies they had were always worried that a traffic ticket from 45 years ago would show up and would knock them out. But in these days, it's normal practice to do, and you get to know your potential volunteer and what they're all about then.
Yeah, the way I look at it is I want to get to know them first before we introduce them to a mentee.
So where's the pool of kids coming from? Is it from the Boys and Girls Club, or is it from the school district?
Yeah, good question. So it's really from both. The majority have come from the Boys and Girls Club, only because I physically work at the club, so I see the kids every single day. But we do have a number of referrals that come from schools, whether they be school counselors or even teachers. But the majority so far have come from the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay. And so what's the age group of kids that we're dealing with?
Generally middle school, although we're starting to enroll some 5th grade, but generally 6th through 8th for Oshkosh.
Okay. And then for Walt, what's his commitment? What commitment is he making to you then?
Yeah, good question. So we ask for at least a year commitment, if not 2. And then beyond that, we ask that the mentors meet with their mentee twice a month at a minimum during the school year. If they can meet more, great. For at least about an hour and a half each meeting.
So does that meeting consist of, I know that you haven't done it yet because you're with the process, does that consist of an activity or helping with homework or just listening to them or?
All the above. Yeah, the important part, it's like, and the mentor-mentee relationship is like any relationship we have, whether it's with our spouse or a friend. So we want to build trust first, and the only way you build trust is to communicate. So we really try to, when I enroll a mentee and we eventually make a match, I talk to the mentees about questions they can ask their mentor. Where do you work? What do you like to do? So we try to build that communication right away. That's a lot of it to begin with, and then after that we introduce them to activities. Card games is a big one, board games. And then eventually we try to focus on the three objectives of the program, which are academics, leadership and social skill development, and then building career interests.
Okay. So is this done at the Boys and Girls Club, or can, like, say, Walt's kids were playing at a baseball game, he could take?
Yeah, so the Big Futures program is what they call a site-based program.
Okay.
So it's at a site. The two sites that we can use for what they call match meetings are the Boys and Girls Club, of course, which are a majority, 90% of the match meetings
Okay.
happen there, or the child's school during
Okay.
normal school hours.
So are the child's parents involved in this at all, like from the beginning, meeting the mentor, or they know all about the program ahead of time, or?
Yeah, so they generally, I generally have a conversation via email or phone or even in person. Again, it helps that the kids are at the Boys and Girls Club, so I can meet with their parents when they get picked up or when they get dropped off. But from a meeting with their mentor standpoint, the parents generally are involved. We really prefer that it's a one-to-one mentoring program.
Okay, so there's no interfering like
Correct.
us helicopter parents
Yeah.
would do. Okay. So what do you think you're going to get out of the mentoring program? Or what do you hope to get out of
You
it?
know what? I realize there's 1,400 kids that belong to the Boys and Girls Club. So when Jay presented the opportunity to be part of the Big Brother Big Sister, the look right now is for about 120 youth right now. So essentially we're looking for 120 mentors. I think right now we have 15 or 20 signed up, give or take. So we're moving in the right direction. I want to see that child, communicate with me and let me help through difficult times and in life situations, and just be a friend or a phone call away.
Okay.
So
Which is good. And as you're talking, they're putting pictures up. So I don't know if we're going to go through them all, but if you want to talk if you know something about the pictures, if you want to talk about what.
Yeah, so this is our mentor Aaron
Cool.
and the mentee Carter. They're a pretty new match. They've only met a couple times, but this is a pretty typical match meeting, right? Where they sit down, they play board games. They were outside throwing the football. They spent about an hour and a half together. This is in the summer, so Carter is not a traditional summer program kid. He's a school kid.
Okay.
So I have to work it out with his mom when he can get dropped off. But his mom has been very involved. She's enthusiastic about him being in the program, and Carter is also very enthusiastic about being in the program as well.
Okay. And so they're getting to know each other through the activities that you have going on there. So how long has this program been going on?
Yeah, so Big Futures really started January 1st.
Really? It's that new?
Yeah, it's very new. The Boys and Girls Club has a high school-based mentoring program that's centered at both high schools here in Oshkosh. Big Brothers Big Sisters has a younger mentoring program that's elementary-based. So there was this gap in the middle school. So that's why Big Futures was really created, is to kind of fill that gap within the middle school-based kids.
So you're actually doing pretty good then if this just started with the people that you have.
Yeah, we always want to do better.
Yeah.
But we have great mentors like Walt.
Okay.
I'm a little particular about who I bring on board, especially from a mentor standpoint. We want people that want to be in the program, like Walt, who really want to help kids. Kind of that middle school is a kind of a weird age, right?
Right.
They're starting to learn a lot of things. A lot of them good, some of them not so good, right? And they just need that extra kind of guidance to, kind of start off their high school career. Because in a short 4 years, once they get to high school, they're out in the real world, whether it's college or the workforce.
Right. And the Boys and Girls Club has been doing such good things for many, many years. But when you said how many kids there are, my kids are in their mid-30s, so they went there 30 years ago when it was smaller, but it was still packed.
Yep.
Still packed with kids. So to get off topic for a second, is there something going on in the Boys and Girls Club future now?
Always, right? So our summer program is going on for the next 4 weeks, right?
Okay.
We have just in what we call our Quest program, which is the one I'm primarily work with. That's 3rd through 6th grade. We have about 65, 70 kids. So we do field trips, we do programming, we do STEM. There's all kinds of things like that. Once we get into the fall, then we really start looking at a lot of our fundraising activities. We do Halloween party, we do Christmas party, and then of course there's Wine Feast in April, which is the big fundraiser, and probably the most fun for our staff and everybody involved. It's a great event for everybody. And then, lastly, of course, we're working on expansion of the Boys and Girls Club and
Yes.
fundraising for that.
And so when do they expect that? I'll put you on the spot. When do they expect that to happen or open, or is it just you're still in the fundraising part of it?
Yeah, so we're hoping sooner than later, right? But we are still in the fundraising part of it.
Okay.
Tracy Ogden, our CEO, a fantastic CEO, is really kind of the forefront of that fundraising effort. We're starting part of the expansion this summer. We've started it already. We're hoping this second phase is this fall.
Okay.
And then the larger phase, we're hoping either next spring or the following fall. So we're looking at about a year and a half, 2 years.
Because your campus is just getting bigger
Yeah.
and bigger. I mean, from what it was till now, it's like when I have to go there, I get lost. Because I remember the entrance that I went in and where the kitchen was and all that, and how it's completely different.
Yeah, we need space. I mean, that's the big thing. We need space. We need to update our technology and some of our amenities. So, that's really why we're doing the expansion.
So let's talk about, we'll get back to mentoring, but let's talk about what other volunteer opportunities are there. If somebody realizes mentoring is not for me, what else could they do at the Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah, again, so the big one is Wine Feast in April.
Okay.
We're always looking for, obviously people to join Wine Feast, or there's some volunteer opportunities there as well.
And people need to realize that Wine Feast, you don't volunteer one day before, that you plan and plan and plan, so they could look, people, if they were interested, they could be on a committee or help with something, because you have donations, you have raffles, you have all this stuff to raise money for the kids.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been involved in school fundraising efforts, right? Where you're trying to get these donations. Take that and times it by about 50, right? So we're doing all of that. Then there's just different donation opportunities throughout the year, whether it's back to school, whether it's Halloween, whether it's Christmas gifts. That's a big one. A lot of our kids are looking, a lot of our families are looking for, Christmas gifts, right? They may not be able to afford it that particular
Right.
year. So Christmas gifts is a big one.
And we have to say this about our community. I'm born and raised here, and so this is a giving community. You can have day by day with their fundraising program, and now Christine Ann with their fundraising program, and you guys, and we all can get along because there's enough money and enough interest, enough volunteers in Oshkosh to support every single project that there is.
Yeah, I mean, there's people above me that could probably answer this better, but I think the way we look at it is we all try to work together, right? We're all trying to benefit the community in some way, and we all have our expertise in one area or another, but really we're all working together to benefit the Oshkosh community.
And that's true, because people talk about silos all the time, that everybody's in their own silo and doesn't care what anyone else is doing, but that's really not true.
No.
Because everyone works together because it's the common good, and for kids, that's a huge common good right there, to take care of our kids.
Yep. We try to take care of the kids and the families in general to make sure they've got a brighter future ahead of them.
So does the Boys and Girls Club use volunteers during the day, during their actual, besides coaching or something, or is there like
there
in the
are
kitchen or?
Yeah, there are a few volunteers, but mostly everybody's either part-time or
Yeah.
full-time. And so, it's structured very much like a school would be, especially during our school year, right? So the kids get there after school, and then there's programming. So we they just don't get to come in and kind of do whatever they want. It's pretty well structured, where they're learning things like STEM.
So you want to explain for our audience what STEM is?
Let's see. Science, technology, environment, and mathematics, I believe.
Yeah, you're pretty good.
Yeah. So we have a STEM coordinator, Susan, who kind
Okay.
of runs that program. And at least once a week, if not a couple times a week, she's working on different STEM activities with our kids.
So do you work with the school district then to find out what you should be doing, to help the kids with their needs?
Absolutely. We work closely with principals, with dean of students, certainly with the counselors. From a mentoring standpoint, I work very closely with the counselors of pretty much all of the middle schools, but primarily Merrill, Webster, South Park, and Tipler.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. My daughter was a teacher at Merrill, so yeah, science teacher no less. So I knew what STEM was, but sometimes people throw out the acronyms.
Hopefully I got it right.
Yeah, you did. They throw out the acronyms. You're going, what does that stand for? What is that all about? But I think that's really cool. So is there anything that you wanted to say, either as a board member for the Boys and Girls Club? This is your chance to push.
No, you know what? Listen, there's a lot of great organizations in the city of Oshkosh, and the Boys and Girls Club is just a special place for the youth in the community. So anybody out there, whether or not it's 20 minutes or being a board member, any participation is greatly appreciated. So, yeah.
Walt's a pretty typical mentor, where he's got a full-time job, he's got a family, he works for Lico Steel here in Oshkosh, right? So, the mentoring program itself, I really try to work around their schedules, because I want to make sure they're comfortable with the time that they're and the day that they're meeting with their mentee.
Okay. So let's talk about, we'll give Lico Steel a plug.
Sure.
So are they very supportive of what you're doing then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. So Lico Steel, we're out of the Chicagoland area. We opened up our facility here back in September of '06, and we've been involved with the Boys and Girls Club for the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that's the neat thing when you get those companies that there are companies that back their employees. They can take 2 days off per year to volunteer somewhere and get paid for it, or they'll do matching funds for that. So that's cool to have the company back you in what you need to do and what you want to do.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned before that Oshkosh is a real giving community. I mean, our corporations, our businesses in Oshkosh have been extremely giving, certainly when it comes to the Boys and Girls Club, but other organizations as well. We live in a very generous community when it comes to businesses.
And that was just, happening to us, like when we had that bad storm last week. We had donations even from the co-op downtown because they lost their power in their refrigerators, and we got all this produce for our residents that we shared. Or EAA is just winding down in July, and EAA donates so much because they get so much food all the time, and everybody just thinks about where can we give it, where can we help people. So that's really cool.
Yep. It's a great community to be in right now. A lot of expansion, and again, from a mentoring, volunteer standpoint, fantastic community.
So, when are you going to put Walt to work? So, I know you said it's a process. So are we waiting for the school year to start, or can it start before that?
Yeah, it can really start anytime. Again, we're really waiting for the right mentee.
Okay.
The idea when I first started the program in January was to really build up the mentor part. I knew that would be a little bit tougher, just reaching out to individuals and making sure they wanted to do this and they had the time to do this. So now we're kind of starting to build up the mentee portion of it. And once we build that up, which should happen here in a few weeks, then we start looking for the best match, right?
Okay.
Some kids are into sports, some kids are into video games. We want to make sure that the mentors kind of have similar interests as well.
So who signs them up? Do their parents sign them up, or do the kids just say, I'm interested in this? Or
yeah, the parents have to sign them up. They
do.
have to be involved. There's a number of forms that they have to sign off on. There's an enrollment form. There's an emergency medical release form. There's a couple of school forms. Because we really we have some goals that we want the kids to eventually meet. Some of those are school-based. So we want the parents involved, just not particularly in the match meetings themselves. Right. Yeah.
So can you give us typical activities that Walt might be doing?
Yeah, so if Walt was meeting with his mentee, I would work to facilitate that meeting with both the parent and the mentor. And they would come in and just kind of sit down and talk for half hour, 45 minutes maybe. They meet for about an hour and a half. And then the rest of the time, I really leave it up to them what they want to do. Okay. Sometimes it's going out on our playground, throwing the football around, or maybe going into our gym and shooting baskets. A lot of times it's just card games or board games. So
you said that you kind of look at their interests. So if somebody is really into computers, And the mentor is not into computers. Or is
Yep,
older.
that's why Walt is looking for somebody that plays basketball and catches the football, and somebody else can figure out how to turn on the computer.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yes.
Because I know when I call my kids, and what do you want now? Is it your phone? Is it the TV? Or is it the computer? It's like, oh my gosh. But I could see that happening where if I can't relate to someone in that way.
Right.
And so you look at both Walt's interests and then the interests of the child.
Yeah, that relationship between mentor and mentee is really no different than a relationship between two adults, right?
Okay.
If you don't have common interests, at least as a baseline, it's very hard to communicate and build that relationship. So we try to find similar interests. We don't try to find an exact match, but we try to find similar interests to really start that communication process.
And then maybe it's not an obvious question, but so is it man to boy, or can a girl be involved with another match?
No, it's a good question because I've gotten it a few times. So we generally try to pair males with males and females with females. We can, in certain situations, in the right situation, match a female with a female mentor with a male mentee, but we really try to stick to the same gender. Just because, again, the interests generally kind of fall in line with what they're what they're interested in outside of school, really.
Because I've seen that with other programs too, or teachers will say, this young lady doesn't have a father figure in her life, or this boy doesn't have a mother figure in her life, and maybe that's something that they could get out of it, or do with the program. But I see you're trying to do what's best for the child.
Yeah, and there's other ways to facilitate that if that was a need. Let's say we had a female mentor and a female mentee, and that may be the case where there was a father figure missing. We could do some group activities where we kind of maybe structure things around positive male role models in their lives and what do they look like, right?
Okay.
So those are things we did a group event back in April where it was focused on from a mentee standpoint, how do they meet somebody that they've never met before? What are the questions they can ask, right?
Okay.
It was all centered around Easter egg decorating. So we pick an activity. The kids think it's just an activity, but then we focus on.
And you talk about it.
Yeah.
There it is. You talk. Our crew is great here. Thank you, Jake. But that's interesting because there are a lot of kids these days who don't know how to interview, who don't know what to ask, and they sit there. And for you to start this in middle school, I think is pretty significant for those kids, so they get comfortable and they know what to ask, what's appropriate, what's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think again that middle school age, you're learning things, right? But maybe from a social standpoint, you're struggling a little bit, and they don't know how to approach somebody that they've never met. And the questions they can ask to kind of bridge that communication gap.
Definitely.
So that was one event that we tried to help them with that. There'll be other events throughout the year as well.
That's cool. Well, unfortunately, our time is winding down. So anything either of you guys want to say, like a contact information, or I think it's on the screen. I always put people on the spot when I ask. There we go. So is that your number at the Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah, that's my number. My extension's 134, so they can call that number if they need to get a hold of me. Otherwise, email is probably the easiest as well.
Okay. So we do have a radio audience too. I forgot to say that. So we're also on the radio at 101.9 FM. So for our radio audience, if you want to call Jay, it's 920-223-1414, extension
134.
Otherwise, his email is jg@bgc. I have bifocals, you guys.
bgcosh.org.
There we go. So I appreciate this very much. Anything that you want to say?
No, you know what? Everybody's life is busy, I would say. And I have 4 young kids. I travel for work, and the bag sometimes just doesn't fit all the stuff you're trying to fit into it. So like I said earlier, if you can just peel off a few minutes on volunteering, whether or not it's at the Boys and Girls Club or anywhere else in the community, please do so, because it means a lot to the community.
And that's a perfect way to end our show. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate the Boys and Girls Club being here.